Bandhuhu atmana atmanaha tasya. The intellect is the friend of the mind. What does this feel like? The intellect makes a sankalpa, a thought of well-changing, samkalpa. And this inhibits any vikalpa, which means well-canceling, doubts, etc. We engage in vikalpa most naturally through justifying why we shouldn't change. I'm already perfect, no one else is changing, and so on. Yena atma eva atmana jitaha. How did this friendship develop? This friendship developed by the intellect directing, the word conquering is used here, but better is directing the mind. Like any meaningful friendship, it didn't happen instantly. It happened with steadiness and sincerity. This inner friendship has happened through karma yoga. The intellect has helped the mind to understand that karma yoga is the means to the ends. The mind and intellect need to be happy. That's the ends. The means is karma yoga. Conversely, anatmanaha tu shatrutve. The mind that is not directed by the intellect, that mind is an enemy to the intellect. It is confusing to see the word enemy because we rarely feel in a genuine way that we have an enemy. We may say it casually, but we don't feel it. What this feels like in our lives, for those who do not follow karma yoga, dedication with less deservership, with less doership, they never are prepared for jnana yoga. There's no yoga in their karma. This is not their lifestyle. So the mind is never ready to know that there is more. For those who feel yoga is an event, a class you take, clothes you wear, it is not your lifestyle, then all that this yoga will provide is a siddhi. Siddhi means a power. One is doing this for their physical health or emotional health. This is not what karma yoga or Jnana Yoga is for, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga is to be infinite. What physical and mental health? And to make sure that we're all clear about this, another champion of yoga, the first being Shri Krishna, another, his name is Rishi Patanjali. He has written the Yoga Sutras. There are 4 padas, or chapters. Chapter 3 is on Vibhuti, the power that comes when you follow through with yoga. But then there's a chapter 4 entitled Kaivalya, which means peace. If the purpose of yoga was power, that would be the end of the Yoga Sutras, but it's not. There's one more pada. Varteta atmana shatruvat. The mind will continue to be an enemy if it is not directed by the intellect. Prince Arjuna will continue to feel stress, anxiety, and dejection if he doesn't follow Shri Krishna. Pujya Swami Tejomayananda shared with us, the mind being an enemy is like an equipment out of control. Many of you back in the day, before you had a Instapot, you had a pressure cooker. How many of you have had a pressure cooker that has exploded? By show of hands. See, a lot of you. I know too, because my mother has, and I was the cleaning crew. The ceiling, the corners, the countertops, the floors. It's an equipment out of control. It is messy, but extremely dangerous. Yes? And Pujya Swami Tejomayananda further shared that this is, when the mind is not directed by the intellect, is worse than a child. How many of you have experienced a tantrum from a child? Every morning, during meaningful mornings. And you tell that child, put your shoes on, brush your teeth, we have to go. And all they say is, no. But with the child, eventually they say yes, out of hunger, out of bribery, out of fear, whatever it is. But the mind will just say no forever. We continue with focusing less on how the mind plays out as an enemy of the intellect, but rather a friend. Verses 7, 8, 9 are all zooming in on the utility of the intellect directing the mind. Jitatmanash prashantasya Paramatma samahitaha Shitoshna sukha dukkeshu Tata manapamanayoho. Jitatmana, the one whose personality is being directed, they experience shanti, but the prefix pra, prashanti or prashanta, it is a peace that has never been experienced before. It is acute. It is awesome. The jitta, that is the conquering or the directing, this happened through doing. Coming back to karma yoga, it is doing with dedication. No deservership, no doership. And one naturally feels peaceful doing this, but the prashanta, that comes from being. The doing is preparing us for being our nature. Once one is being, after that, there's just a non-applicable. Doing, not doing, being, not being. None of that is applicable. Sharing this in another way. The jitta happens in an uncontrolled environment. The prashanta happens in a controlled environment. That is contemplating in a context. Those teachings are coming very soon. Earlier, I used the word samadhana, which means to focus. From an uncontrolled environment, you focus like a surgery. But once that's completed, you can go back into the uncontrolled environment and it will not make a difference that it's uncontrolled. You have become that independently peaceful. Paramatma samahitaha. Through contemplation, one has rediscovered their center. See the careful teachings. How many times the word Atma was used in verses 5 and 6. And I repeatedly said, it is not referring to the spirit. For clarity now, Shri Krishna uses Parama Atma. That's the spirit. One has rediscovered their center. Through a lifestyle of balance, they have rediscovered their center, and now they will be balanced forever. Samahita, that's the word for balance. Adding more here, many of you are in our Upanishad course, where at the beginning of the class, I share with you, feel that you are a Parama Hansa Sannyasi as this class begins. Hansa means the one who knows what's important and not important. Paramahansa, who knows this fully. That all that is important is peace. Then what do? Sannyasa. To let go of what happened earlier in the day, to let go of a thought one is having. When we are practicing being Paramahansa Sannyasis, we will let go of all that causes us to be imbalanced. Shri Krishna is an icon of a Paramahansa Sannyasi. He knows the only important purpose of living, experience of living, is peace. This is my attempt to look like Shri Krishna, wearing blue and yellow, but also to support Ukraine. More specifics are given in the next line. This balance, I told you, then spreads to the uncontrolled environment where there is Shita. Shita means coldness, Ushna, hotness, Sukha, which is pleasurable, Dukkha, that which is painful, Mana, where there is respect, Apamana, where there is disrespect. One is balanced, irrespective of environment. And coming back to the idea of knowing what's important and what is not, this being balanced in the uncontrolled is only possible when you are deeper than entities, deeper than experiences, deeper than equipments, deeper than the ego. When you are contemplating and you've identified with existence, does existence get cold? Did you wake up and respect existence? If you disrespect existence, will it take itself away from you? It is balance centered. Pujaswami Tejomayananda shared, in terms of balance, the sankalpa that we have to take. Number one, that we will not fall further. Number two, that we will rise again. So if I'm feeling very imbalanced, sankalpa, I will not become more imbalanced. Sankalpa, I will rise again to balance. That's the pact the mind has to make with the intellect. One final thought. In our silence culture workshop last night, I'd given practice in how to be balanced. The virtue required is titiksha, which means endurance. But then you're going to ask, how do you practice titiksha? And I'd shared, do what you don't like to do. Do what you do not like to do. In Sanskrit, that's called tapa, to burn your comfort zone. But as you're doing this, and certainly afterwards, write about it. In a spiritual guide, that is your notebook, write down the questions you had while you were engaged in tapa. Write down the reflections you had while you were engaged in tapa. That way it evolves to titiksha, that endurance. It's a form of reconciling. The more you can endure, the more you will be balanced, the more you will rediscover Paramatma, the Atma, your center. And just watch how the application of this is shared generally in verse 8, more specifically, and then verse 9 is one of the best verses I've ever come across in any scripture. You'll have to wait for that. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Oh. Oh. Visualize Atma or spirit to be like light. Light has no color. And then an article comes in front of this light. It could be a sweater, could be a table. It appears like this colorless light is whitish. In our visualization, this would be the ego expressing through the intellect. That I am the doer. That there is no colorless light. Rather, white light is the foundation, is the original. This white light then expresses through a prism, which sounds like a prison, which is the mind. Colorless light becomes white light, becomes the rainbow. And then the mind goes on and on and on, interpreting. Red is more beautiful than blue. Look at all the shades of green. I hate yellow. I wish I was purple. Jitta, conquer, means balance. Balance the mind by quietening the interpretation. Red is not better than blue. You do not need to be purple. These are just expressions of colorless light. Through dedicated living, the mind becomes quiet, and one starts to see and feel the white light. This is felt in the intellect. This taste of the truth that there is more than the rainbow. This moreness is now this white light. This taste confirms all that you know, since there's more to the rainbow that is white light. There must be more than white light that is colorless light. Contemplation is the deepening of this confirmation. It is for you to be what you know. Even white light has qualities. It is white. This is Dvaita, separation. This is what our default sense of I is right now. I am separate. If there is white light, there must be colorless light. If there is separation, there must be that which is separated, which means that must be oneness. Be oneness. This is your center, my center, the center of all. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.